Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's March 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And as you can see here, we had a huge bearish day. Prices broke higher, traded higher. Once that FOMC news came out, we took off, shot up, shot down. We'll look at it in a minute, but before the day was over, we had two huge bearish legs down. So we may be going to try to test these lows again. We'll just have to see. We did close below the midline, which is this purple line right here on the envelope bands. This line is just an EMA. The other lines are based on some other more proprietary stuff that I don't really discuss, but this is just a midline here. It's just a 21 EMA. So, and it works just like normal 21 EMA. You can see if you look back across here, you can see prices playing off that EMA all along, all up and down through there. So it works just like a regular EMA, and we treat it just like a regular EMA. But very bearish day. If we get some follow through trading like that tomorrow, we're probably going to try and test these lows. Maybe this channel is valid after all, and we're going to retest the lows on it after a break. Maybe we're still going to go lower. Who knows? And I would say we didn't quite get to the midline here. So after the market has a little bit of time to digest this, we could push up again and continue to try to test this. So it's just hard to say. That's so bearish that if we get any follow through tomorrow, we may get another big sell-off day. We'll just have to kind of see what the market does. But a lot of times, after a day like that, you'll get some consolidation, kind of like we did here. If you go back and look at some of these big days, you get a little consolidation after them. Big move here, and we consolidated. Big move up, we kind of consolidated. That's pretty normal. So we could see some sideways stuff tomorrow. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. Looks really bearish as of right now, though. So, but let's flip over to the 2,000 tick intraday chart, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll go from. Okay, here's a look at the 2,000 tick chart. Really, we were mostly sideways until the news item, and then where's 1 o'clock? 1 o'clock's right in here. We had this. We had two legs down, then we rallied, then we had this big leg down, a correction, and then another leg down. You can see we got even a little more than a measured leg there. So there's your two legs down. And but yeah, for the most part, it's not uncommon on a FOMC day to be flat and not a lot of volume. You can see how light the volume was going into it. People are just setting it out and waiting for that news before they commit to anything because you don't know what's going to happen. And even if you get it right, you might get burned in the process because the market will jump and it'll just do crazy things. So you're better off to be flat, and that's what this blue is. On a day like today with the FOMC the way it is and what we're expecting, I would be flat a minimum of an hour before, so 12 o'clock. So I blocked off from 12 o'clock, and it had kind of settled down by about a little before, right around 1:30 or so. You might have started trading a little sooner than that, but there's not much there prior to that anyway. So we picked back up here just a little after 1:30. You can see right there, and it still was a lot of volatility, but it was very tradable at that point. There weren't a whole lot of afternoon trades, to be honest. It's just kind of difficult trading when the market. I mean, it just takes off in one direction, and it doesn't really give you many setups. And the next thing you know, it's racing in the other direction, and it doesn't give you many setups, and it's racing back in the other direction again, and you just don't get a lot of setups. It's a real weak market, or I shouldn't say a real weak market, real weak trend down, then a real strong trend up, and then a real weak trend down again. And it's just difficult trading because you don't get a lot of setups, and it's dangerous to try to catch reversals in this stuff because if you're wrong, you get burned quickly. If you tried to pick a top here, you had to wait for this to break and it move on up, and then it was pretty obvious. But if you're not, most traders are better off not trying to play reversals And so if you don't know how to play a reversal, which most, um, unless you're very skilled chart reader, you don't need to be playing reversals. And so unless you're really good at reversals, you're better off to wait till you get a trend. And once the trend comes, there's not many setups. It just keeps going, and you don't really get a good chance to enter it. So if you learn to spot those, if you get a good setup at the key entry point, maybe you just take them because there's not any other way to get in those trends. And um, my my point of view is you're better off just not to trade these kind of days. Trade up until lunchtime, close up shop, and don't worry about what happens after the news on a day like today with FOMC news. And I suspect the FOMC news is going to continue to be volatile for a while because we're really stuck between a rock and a hard place because they need to raise rates to slow all the inflation down. But every time they raise rates, they put the banks in more trouble, it seems. And we've already got some banking troubles creeping in. And so I think the Feds are kind of in a rock between a rock and a hard place. They're kind of backed into a corner. And so it's anything they do is not going to come out good. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. It's kind of scary, to be honest with you. And you can see the market didn't like it at all in the end. Just going by what the Fed said, they said there's less chance of higher rates due to the softening, things softening somewhat. But it doesn't look like there's very likely there's going to be any rate cut. So we're kind of stuck at these interest rates, probably at a 5% lending rate for a while now. So that means if you go to the bank, it's going to be much higher than that. So we'll see what happens, but obviously the market doesn't like it, and we'll see if we rebound or get some consolidation tomorrow before something changes. But anyway, let's zoom in here and go through the trades and wrap this day up. Again, there were a few trades here early on, but you really had to wait. If you waited till after 1 o'clock, there just wasn't much going on. But 7 o'clock came just about halfway down this two-legged move here. There is a lower high here. It's moved quite a bit, and you don't have much room before those lows right there. You really wouldn't have had the range in here yet, so that's not really part of it. I just think it's not a great place to go short. It would have worked, but you can see it rebounds rather quickly, and then you try to go higher two more times. So you get a failure here, and this actually broke higher and turned down. I really kind of like going short right there on the engulfing bar. Since this is a failed second entry long, it's probably going to trap traders. When I go short way down here, right into those two lows, I don't think so. I think you're too late there. It still would have worked. It is a very bearish bar, but a lot of times those are sucker trades that try to suck you in and they reverse real quickly. And you can see it didn't go too far before it did reverse. So be real careful with those. Plus, we had a break of the, it looks like we've got a break of the trend line right here. And we've already got a new low in as soon as it goes past this low right here. There is one other thing to think about, though. We had a break of this channel, and we don't have a new low in place yet, so we may be just making a second leg down. And so we could get a measured leg, and so that's the other thing to think about. So you got some mixed signals there, and you can see we're close to two measured legs. We didn't quite get it. They even came back and tried again for to make that measured move. Actually tried twice more, and then it rallied again. So that was something to consider there. Definitely don't want to be going short down here. You actually have two legs, possibly two legs down right there. So with the break and the new low here and the double bottom, I like trying to catch this back. It's always iffy if you try to catch it on the first move. A lot of times you want to wait on a higher low, and you get a higher low here. And this is an engulfing bar. I'd probably like this one on the engulfing bar again because that gives you plenty of room back. Would I go long right into that midline on this big bar? Probably not. And you can see we didn't get back to the highs again, and then we come back down. And that's why I don't like these tests right in here. First, you got a triple. You could argue that's a triple test right there, but there's no break of that move back yet. And we didn't get quite to the high right there, so that could mean we may push on down to this measured. But you got to assume prices are trying to make this measured leg here, and they tried again, and they tried again, and so they tried 3 more times there and gave up, and then of course it runs right back up to the highs again. So the problem here is, why wouldn't you think about going long? Well, by the time you get these next couple of tests, you got congestion there, and you're getting acceptance of prices, so there's no rejection there yet. And by the time the rejection comes, you're right back into the center. So you got to be careful on that. And I just think there's no entry there. And then you come back and you come up short. So you make a higher low, another couple of higher lows. But you can't, you're really just chopping along sideways, but you're not able to breach this up here either. And then right here, you make a triple test. You got a 1, 2, 3 times triple test right there. And look at that bar. Again, I don't know that I would wait for this to close because, again, you probably don't. You get stopped out if you try to trade it that way, and that's what 16 ticks. But it breaks higher and gives you a lower high and then turns down. So I like going short on the engulfing bar there. That gives you a little bit more room to play with back to the midline where these other lows are. And so I like taking that trade, but I would not enter down here. I just think the bar is too big and you've moved too far and you're too close to that last low. And you see what it does. It tests that low and turns. It rallies straight out of there. And then you get 2 legs up, one more push, and then a lower high right there. Still way away from the EMA. I like going short on that. And then you make a low there, and then you get a first entry, and then it breaks higher and turns back down. You get a second entry. I would not trade that one on the engulfing bar. I'd want to wait and see this bar close to make sure it's bearish. And then if you may go short right there, and then I would look for at least a measured move there if you enter there. And so that gets you way down here with plenty of room. And you can see we hesitated there before it actually dropped lower again. And the other thing is, you could treat this like a failed second entry too. So it's a first entry, then a second entry, but it never broke lower till here. So you might have just, when it broke higher here and turned down, you might have thought about entering there. But when it gave you this big bearish bar, I really liked entering it on that one. So I was a little hesitant on that engulfing bar because it ends up closing back up, and you probably don't want to trade that on an engulfing bar. And of course, you got a new high there, so you got another failed second entry long right here. But again, that looks a little congested, and you've already made your measured move. Would have been a great entry, but hey, we don't look back at stuff like that. It's just not a good setup, so we don't take it. Bounces here, break, couple of legs up, and a second entry short right there with a nice signal bar right up that confirms that key entry point. Then we come back and get another second entry and test that key entry point 1, 2, 3 more times, actually 4 or 5. Unfortunately, this wasn't a very good signal bar. I just said go short right there on the lower high. But the only reason I've made this one green, it's a little bit congested there, and you can see it continues to kind of work sideways. But you can see they're testing that, and it's failing. It's holding, so we're probably going to go lower. And at that point, you might even make a measured move like this one. And you can see we got really close to that and then bounced. So, and I didn't see anything else in here. We're 2 sideways here. No, this is just like a first entry. Then we're 2 sideways going, and then we're into 12 o'clock. And like I said, I wouldn't trade anything inside that 12. There was actually a little bit of movement here, but nothing worth risking. You can't afford. A lot of times, the last 30 minutes going into 1 o'clock FOMC, it might look just like that. And you can't get in or out of that. You're just stuck there. And then the news happens and you get hammered on, even if you were in the right direction, you still get hammered and knocked out before it goes there. So it's not worth risking it. So just stay out of all this. And then we get this little trend up here, break, couple of moves up to a new high, and you get a second entry short right there. Again, that's one you might trade. I believe that one broke higher first. Yeah, so that is an engulfing bar. You might trade that one on the engulfing bar that far away from the EMA, but I wouldn't be afraid. It's a little bit of it's a rather large. This is more like that. It's a rather large signal bar, but you may take it even there. It's closed very bearish. And then you try to go higher once, twice, and you also get a first, second entry with a real bearish bar. Definitely take that trade and look for another leg down, either similar to, that would be my secondary measured move point. You can see we went a little further. Every time today, we've gone a little further than what you would, than a measured move. But I would look for that, and then shorter term, the other one I would look for would be here. And you see we did a perfect measured move there and then corrected one swing and moving on for the next one. So a couple of different ways to look at them there. And notice we get a higher low right here. It breaks lower and then turns up. Don't trade that on the engulfing bar, but this closes really bullish. I like going long there. And when it comes back again here and gives you a failed second entry short, this is not a reversal. It's just a failure that's going to probably trap people, and you're going to run back to that EMA at a minimum. Then your next target probably be the midline, and then all the way back to the highs again up here. And this thing just takes off. So if you trade this, you get a runner, and you probably, I mean, if there's a good chance you could ride this one all the way. And, you know, if you just have one contract, you're looking at 40 points in a very short period of time. Just a few minutes. Now, that's the kind of trades you like to catch. But, yeah, I like both of those actually. You wouldn't have got a runner on this one, I don't think, but you would have here. It just takes on off. Unfortunately, you didn't get a good signal bar here. It's just a first entry anyway, but you might could have argued that, hey, there's some strong support there, and taken it if you just got a good signal bar, but you don't. So now you got your break. You got a couple of swings up. I think it's too risky trying to go short up here. It's real tempting, but you know, it's only 7 ticks, but it's just too big a chance you get stopped out. You can't try picking tops like that. So just wait. A few minutes later, you get a failure. I don't like taking the failure because it's on the wrong side, and you see it does bounce right at the EMA. But you also get a second entry short right here, and I like that one. It's still a little congested, but when it failed to go higher again after, it's like a double trap there, and you can see, boom, the bottom just falls out. And this is what I talked about. If you see this shorter term, the cyan colored channel, you got a good signal bar there, a good signal bar there. That's the first break with another good signal bar, and then another one even down here, but I certainly wouldn't take that one. But I probably wouldn't even take this one because it looks congested. But these other two, if you recognize what's going on there, maybe you take those because there's just no other way to get in those trades. They're risky, and you probably need to be a little more experienced. I marked another one down here. Notice you get a first entry, second entry. We came up short here, but we came up short here too. So no surprise there. You would expect it would go all the way back to the trend line, and we didn't. So it's still pretty weak. So because we didn't get there, instead of overshooting it that much, we came up short. So we may land right at the trend line this time, and you get 2 legs back and a perfect second entry, although the signal bar is not great. It's kind of a neutral signal bar, but if you look at that, it's 9 ticks, and on a day like this, it's this volatile, right off a key entry point, that pretty much confirms that trend line. With plenty of room back just to this low here, you may take that trade. Like I said, this thing's really, really weak here, and it's obvious, and it turns out to be a pretty good trade. And then we just kind of chop along till we get a break and move to a new low, and that's just a first entry. You can't really argue there's even a triple test there. And we tried to make a second leg down and reversed. And I like this one. Notice the new low, and you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry that fails. So if it breaks above that, we're probably going to at least test the breakout area, and we may completely fail and go higher, which we do. So here's another one. You get a runner on it, and you can ride that, probably get a good ride out. Too bad we didn't get a good signal bar here. You get a first entry, second entry, right at the key entry point after your first break here. So you're probably going to run on higher. And it does. It gets a really bullish move up. Tries to make one more push up. That one's tempting, but again, it looks a little congested. Wait and see if you get a lower high or reversal, and you get a lower high here, but not a good setup, and then you get your failure here, which is kind of a reversal that you're going back the other way, and that's a quick, easy move. Looks like it's going to be short-lived, but you just get a little correction there, and then the second leg really takes off. But we're already in at 230. There's actually another second entry right here, but it's just not a good enough signal bar. It doesn't set up very good. So there it is. Like I said, not much after 1 o'clock. There's a couple of trades in there, a few green ones. You really had to find your trades early today. So if you take the whole day into effect, we lost a good bit of trading because of the FOMC stuff. But better safe than sorry. Stay out of that stuff. It's just too big a chance of getting burned in it. But anyway, well, there it is, and we got another FOMC, another quarter's worth out of the way, so we should be good for another quarter here till we get the next one. But I'm not sure when the next one is. I think it's every quarter. I believe that's how often they come out. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Not much else you can say about today. Again, it's just an FOMC day, mostly sideways until the news gets digested, and then it was a really bearish day. So I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow. Believe it or not, tomorrow's Thursday, and we'll wrap up another week. I don't know where the time is going. Anyway, I hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.